Hey there, lady. My name is Molly Conley, and I'm devoted to helping women reinvent their love lives. Whether that's after divorce, dating on and off the apps, or in their committed relationship. Why? Because I've been there. I'm a former college athlete who filed for divorce 3 years into marriage, swam in the online dating pool into my late 30s, and now I'm married to the man of my spreadsheet dreams who I met 4 months before the world shut down. As a dating and relationship coach, I help my clients build a foundation filled with clarity, connection, and confidence, knowing Mr. Right is worth waiting for. Each week on the podcast, I'll bring you love life insights and savvy guests where you will receive the courage to release programmed limiting beliefs, discover patterns and behaviors restricting you from finding and attracting quality men, and ways to choose yourself first so you can build a foundation for a healthy relationship with yourself and a partner. Hey there, lady. Welcome back to the podcast. Brad is back for another couch conversation to finish up part 2 of the series, Choosing What is Important in Life. All of this is based off the book called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark Manson. And if you haven't heard the podcast episode of part 1, Brad had just finished reading this book right before we met back in 2019. So thanks, babe, for joining me again.
You are welcome.
So just in case someone hasn't listened to part 1, and if you guys haven't listened, go back to episode 90, I think it's 91. Can you share what the book is really all about?
Yeah. So what kind of summarizes it comes right from the book. It says this book will help you think a little bit more clearly about what you're choosing to find important in life and what you're choosing to find unimportant. So the book's not about not caring what people think or not giving a fuck about anything. It's about learning to give fucks about the right things, the important things.
Yeah, so it's kind of the currency of giving a fuck in order to, find out what's important to you in life.
Yes, it means your fucks are what you care about.
Okay, great. So in part 1, we really focused on that personal growth and the aha moments that you had. And now we're incorporating the relationship aspects of it. So why do you feel that these next few areas from the book are worth sharing on the podcast?
Well, like you said, and we talked about it, several of the chapters really deal with personal growth and, the individual, but there's definitely some parts of the book that I found really applied to relationships and specifically things I learned during my first marriage that were really relatable in this book. So I thought, there's a couple of chapters that I thought would be good to talk about.
Okay, so where would you like to start off then?
So there's a chapter, this happens to be chapter 6, and it's called You're Wrong About Everything. So the kind of overarching theme is that certainty is the enemy of growth. And what that means is, being wrong opens up the possibility of change, and uncertainty is the root of all progress and growth. So it's about learning to practice to question yourself and doubt your own thoughts and beliefs. And it talks about how it's one of the hardest things to do, which I believe is true, but it's also one of the most beneficial skills, you can learn to help you grow, to question yourself and say, what if I am wrong?
Mhm.
What would it mean if I were wrong? Would me being wrong make a difference? Would it make a problem better for myself or for others? And there's just, I was reading this, there's just so many little examples that came to my mind, from my first marriage. Even the most simple one and universal across all marriages is loading the dishwasher.
Yes.
I used to get so frustrated with the dishwasher being loaded differently than I learned to load it, because my way was the right way, and why would you do it any other way? Whether that's, dishes go here, plates go there, silverware goes sharp side up or sharp side down, or, whatever.
Plastics go on top.
Yeah, I don't even remember what I used to do at this point, but it's just such a simple but clear example to everybody about an ingrained,
System.
belief, in what is right. It's because I was raised that way. That's all I saw growing up, and that's what makes sense. And that's, a whole nother issue is, where those beliefs come from. But a necessary part of growth is to ask yourself, okay, why do I believe that? And what's the harm? What if I am wrong? What's the harm if some other way is right? does that mean I'm wrong? What if there are more than one, way to do this? And so I did eventually learn to not care about that and say, yes, there's several ways to do this. But so it's funny to look back on just how little things like that can, start fights or just be so frustrating, because you believe you are right and you're
Mhm.
not willing to question yourself and open yourself up to what would it mean if you were wrong or if there's other ways to do things.
Well, what I like when you bring that up though too is even though it's really difficult to question ourselves about being wrong, the next layer is even more tough because sometimes we don't want to be wrong and we don't want someone else that we truly care about, hypothetically speaking. Like I learned how to load, and you said the too, like from our mothers, like how to load the dishwasher right. And we don't want to necessarily put someone that we love and care for to have them be technically wrong because of that was the way that served them best at the time, and teaching us their way was just how it was more efficient for them or just help them move through the process with us when we were kids or growing up or whatnot. But having a belief system that's really your own can help you stand out authentically and help you actually get those beliefs to move more, how do I want to say, like, other than authentic, but like it can free you. So, like you said, for the dishwasher, you're just like, now, okay, well, we both load it a little bit differently, but we still, get the job done. It's not who's right, who's wrong. Um, and that actually frees up a lot of tension in relationships. So think of all the different beliefs that you could start questioning for yourself that maybe put some friction in your life where it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, I mean, I literally used to go back and redo it, and so I would say if you keep coming back to getting in little fights or even if it's just frustration that's not expressed with the same things over and over again, thinking, why isn't this person doing it my way or this way? That's probably a clue, a red flag to start questioning, well, what if I am wrong? What if there's other ways to do it? What would that mean? So I think that, um, there could be indicators that you need to take a time out and start asking yourself those questions. So if you find yourself keep getting frustrated over the same things, you need to ask yourself kind of like, well, is it me? Am I am
Right.
I the problem?
Or is there like another way to do things? Like for us, one of the cool things that I love about our relationship is like you and I both do our laundry differently and we don't do each other's laundry. So I have a lot of friends that are like, "Your husband does his own laundry." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not watching his own shit. Like, he can wash his shit, I'll wash my shit. Like, it's fine." And it's great for us that way, but I can only imagine in previous relationships, like, when I was trying to do that for another person, and they'd be like, "Oh, no, well, this goes in cold, and this one goes in hot, and I never wash mine with this, and I never do this." And it's like, do you want me to help you or do you not? And eventually, that would cause a fight, like you're saying. So sometimes it's even the better solution is that each person does their own thing and having the, security in your relationship that that's okay.
Yeah, clothes washing is definitely another one. And that issue was there too. Went through that, tried it both ways. Um, Tried to learn how the other person might want their stuff done, and inevitably, if the dryer or the washer did something to clothes, that would be my fault. So I said, no, we're gonna do our own separate
Well,
thing. And
sometimes
sometimes it is.
sometimes things would just get left in pockets and I just, have you ever had the pen
I have
that sucks.
checking pockets has never been my strong suit.
That's why you do your own
Yes,
laundry.
that's fine. I do not even care. I would never ask you to do my laundry. Sometimes you offer to switch the clothes over, and that's great.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that definitely is good to do individually. If you like it done your own way and it's not hurting anybody, then that's fine.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, anything else that you wanna say then about or any other examples do you think you wanna give about, certainty is the enemy of growth here?
Well, it can apply to so many things. I touched on a previous podcast about the book I read called Boundaries, and
Mhm.
it's in general just about any beliefs you have. I think I ran into a lot of issues with what I believed and what I thought was right with when it came to how to deal with my family and the boundaries or lack of that I had in place. And this is how, I mean, maybe it's like, this is how families are. This is how my family is. This is how other families are.
Right.
This is why you should come with me to this. This is why you should do that. This is just the way it is. Like, why are you questioning this? You know, this is my family, this is what we do, which looking back, it's not good, not a good way to think, at least instead of at least being open to hearing the other person's side of the story or why, you know, maybe is the way your family is and that was the way you do things, but maybe that's not the best way to handle things and boundaries now that you're with somebody in a relationship.
Well, yeah, and the other thought is that, like, for us, we're our own family. Just because we don't have kids or pets doesn't mean we're not a family, and I think people's definitions of family have changed over time. So, like, my family always says we are just so weird, we're so different because we don't have to talk every day. We don't have to talk every Sunday. We don't have to get together for every freaking holiday. We are extremely independent. That's how my family is, and so there's a lot of quirks, about us that, like, a lot of families don't understand, and we have been okay with that for so long, but it has been a learning curve for, like, me growing up knowing that we're just unique compared to certain families, especially in the Midwest, on how they do things. So, yeah, I've been in that situation where you're kinda going through another family, like, "This is how we do Saturdays. This is how we do Sundays. This is how we do birthdays. This is how we do holidays," and be like, "Cool, are they traditions or are they belief systems?" Like, there's a whole 'nother realm to dig into that too.
Yeah.
But,
No, I definitely understand.
okay, so what is another area you wanna call out then that you think is important?
So there's another chapter, which happens to be chapter 8. It's called The Importance of Saying No. And it deals with what we were just talking about. What I was just talking about is boundaries. And so I kind of wanted to start with the book's definition of boundaries. And it says boundaries are the delineation between two people's responsibilities for their own problems.
Yay.
And so this is another thing that definitely came up in my previous relationship. And so what the book says is, people in healthy relationships with strong boundaries take responsibility for their own values and problems and do not take responsibility for their partner's values and problems. And the opposite of that is a toxic relationship where there are no boundaries and they avoid responsibility for their own problems and then take responsibility for their partner's problems. And I definitely ran into this. This was definitely an issue. Looking at this, and the book says the mark of an unhealthy relationship is two people who try to solve each other's problems in order to feel good about themselves. And that definitely hits. And I think that hits with a lot of people. In a healthy relationship is when two people solve their own problems in order to feel good about each other. So the classic example of this is, the victim and the saver, or rescuer, however you want to put that. I think everybody's heard that type of relationship, those terms. And these two people, the victim and the saver, are strongly drawn to one another. So it's like an addiction they fulfill in one another. When presented with an emotionally healthy people to date, they usually feel bored or a lack of chemistry. And
Yes.
honestly, I have felt that way in the past, thinking it was bored, and the only time it was exciting was when there was some,
People to save.
yeah, people to save or some drama with that, to feel good about yourself. And I myself fell victim to that. And so I think that's common. I think
It's
a lot
very
of
common.
people feel like that. I think a lot of people find value in themselves and in helping other people in relationships. And there's a line. I mean, there's it may be a fine line, but there's a line to where it just becomes unhealthy and toxic when you're trying to solve the other person's problems all yourself
Yeah.
and take their responsibilities on, and then they're not doing it themselves.
Yeah, so it's another if you've listened to this podcast for a while, especially into season 1, we talked about a lot about self-sabotaging. So this is when people pleasing really gets the hold of you, and you can be a people pleaser and be in a toxic relationship because what you end up doing is avoiding your own problems and saving theirs. So you actually are taking on double the work. And so you're self-sabotaging yourself by not working on yourself and trying to become the healthiest and most aligned version of yourself so that you can have a healthy relationship. And so instead, you go out there and find someone who needs help because you need to have that acceptance and validation that you are worthy. And when you do that,
You're trying to save someone who can't even save themselves. So you're basically drowning. You are out in the middle of the ocean, already drowning, and you're like, "You can get on my back and I'll try to save you too." And no, you're just gonna be screwed, and the relationship fails. And so I also like to call this sometimes the relationship roller coaster too. So like there'll be patterns in a relationship where the other person is like, I'm working on myself and I'm going to fix this for myself. And the other person kind of feels the people pleaser side, might feel a little, distant or hurt. But if they end up like start working on themselves as well, they wait for that moment where the other person starts to fail or starts to drown and tries to save them. And so it becomes this up and down emotional roller coaster
Mm.
that in the end is very similar to a lot of movies, TV shows, reality TV, especially in the relationship area, that this is why people get sucked in. This is why like we love rom-coms. And so people think that this is what relationships really look like. And actually it is toxic behavior of what you just described from the book. So if you want a healthy relationship, you actually work on yourself first, because then you will never feel bored. Instead, you are going to feel a calm presence and a complete connection and chemistry with that person,
Yeah.
which is why we get along now.
Yeah.
Well, not now, but you know what I mean, because we worked on ourselves.
Yeah, and basically to tack on to your people pleasing, basically strong boundaries is the opposite of people pleasing. Um, so for a relationship to be healthy, both people must be willing and able to both hear and say no.
Mhm.
And people with strong boundaries are not afraid of a temper tantrum by the other person, because it's not about giving a fuck about everything your partner gives a fuck about. It's about giving a fuck about your partner, regardless of the fucks he or she gives. And so, the book, he tells a story about how honesty in a relationship is more important to him than feeling good all the time. He
Mm.
gave a little example of, your wife asks you, how do I look in this outfit? And instead of just saying, fine, he said, actually this or that. I actually don't remember what he said. He didn't say, you look fat in these pants or something. That wasn't the case, but he gave honest criticism, and she might have been a little miffed at first, but in the end, they both understand it's not worth all those little lies to tell each other just to keep the other person happy. You might as well be honest, because, and it's something, we do well early, that we learned early on is that, we can hash out our differences openly and vocally
Mhm.
and calmly, and if people aren't able to hash those differences out openly and vocally, then, the relationship is based on manipulation and misrepresentation, and it becomes toxic. So even
Yeah.
that little innocent, you think you're being, fine by saying, oh, you look fine,
Or you look fabulous, and it's like, no.
right, when she probably knows that's not true. Um, so
But there's also another thing about honesty is about being either really brutal or it's actually giving, what is the word I'm looking for? Not positive feedback,
constructive feedback.
constructive feedback.
Yeah.
And I know that's used a lot in the corporate setting, but I'm just thinking of like, let's say you and I were going out and I picked something and it doesn't look good. And you haven't said it like, oh, that looks horrible, but you can tell me like, hey, yeah, this might not look good. But another way to go about it, like if you're a man listening to this episode and your wife, partner, or girlfriend, or not now, but in the future, if you have a favorite outfit of hers, tell her what that outfit is and she will wear it more often. So like that's one thing that I love about you is like I tell you I love this thing on this shirt on you. I love these jeans. I love these shoes or whatever. And so when it comes to getting ready, like you already have in our mind of like what we're going to wear on a date, like you have date night outfits because of certain things I've communicated with you and same thing with me. And that does help for those situations. So being able to actually speak up is also giving that honesty right away and not just giving some flat hypothetical compliment because you just want them to feel better or you just want them to hurry up and get out the door. That was one thing that I didn't like in previous relationships, being like, "Oh yeah, your hair looks great. Let's just move on." And I'm like, "Okay." And then later on, a friend's like, "I can't believe you went out with your hair like that. What did you do?" And I was like, "Well, he said it was done." She's like, "No, it looks like shit."
And that brings me to the next kind of quote from the book I want to say is that, okay, so you're just positive all the time. You're saying everything's fine.
Mm,
So how's the other person supposed to trust that? If you actually give real feedback that might hurt the feelings a little bit, you can trust that they're being real. So I mean,
yeah.
without conflict, there can be no trust. And I thought that was a really good quote from the book. Because if all you're getting is this positive feedback or neutral stuff all the time, but that's not always the case, then how do you trust what that person says any other time? So
Yeah.
it's better just to have open conflict and discuss it normally, even if both people get their feelings hurt a little bit temporarily,
Yeah.
than just go on telling the little lies and then not have real trust there.
Well, and I love that you bring that up because it's also like what you see in a relationship in front of you of someone else's relationship, like our relationship. We have spats every once in a while. I get frustrated at a problem. It might seem like I'm angry at Brad, but it's not the case. I'm angry at the problem. Like that's just how our our fights, our discussions work. But you don't see any of that because it's not on social media. And so certain people think like, oh, highlight reel, like that's they're so positive all the time and all this. Oh, that relationship looks amazing. Like there's things like that. They're giving the wrong perspective of their relationship and it's not being as honest. But how can you actually trust that that is what's really going on behind the scenes? So it's the same sort of thing with the honest conflict here of if you can give positive feedback as well as, you know, constructive feedback, that allows to have that relationship build trust and loyalty to each other and spot the areas of where maybe in other relationships you might not see that for yourself and you be able to decipher which relationships are really good for you, not just even romantic. I'm just speaking about others.
Yeah, no, totally agree. There was one other line in there I have highlighted here at the end. It just kind of follows through all of this about what you're choosing to give your fucks about.
Mm.
And it says commitment, meaning commitment in a relationship, gives you freedom because you're no longer distracted by the unimportant and frivolous. So once you choose, what's important to you, in this case, example, a relationship, you're not distracted by all the other stuff that you would normally be, giving that you used to give fucks about.
Okay.
Once you decide how to allocate your fucks to the most important things, then all the little things that you used to waste your fucks on just go away.
Okay. Give examples because I want these.
I remember from the book, I mean, just little things up front. He's like, you drive around just getting road rage, like driving around, because it's a good example for both of us, I think, just like how much energy do you want to waste on the person that cut you off, or
The really slow driver in the fast lane.
if somebody's doing something wrong, correcting them, wasting your time, even being right. I mean, it kind of ties into
Mm.
the uncertain, or being certain too much. Is do you really want to waste all of your fucks and your energy on being right all the time? Do you really want to die on that hill, whatever that hill is? Are you willing to waste time and energy having this argument with somebody who you're not going to convince? I mean, I think that's one thing, for me is just I used to always have to be right, but then I started questioning why. If I'm in an argument and I know I'm right and I'm arguing with somebody who thinks they're right, you're really not going to get anywhere. I mean, this applies to a lot of areas of life.
I can remember the emotions of things like that. And the emotional part is exhausting. And when you emotionally exhaust yourself, you also mentally and physically exhaust yourself over time. So it's like you're not like fighting the good fight. It's like you can tell me that 2 + 2 = 5. I don't care. Cause like that's the thing. If that someone's gonna sit here and just beat that into me and be like, I am gonna completely detach emotionally from your trying to be persuasive, and I'm just gonna stick with what I know, unless it's actually something that's worth thinking about and being curious about and opening up that belief system and have do I need to have certainty here?
Right.
But certain things, once you know where your fucks go, you can spend them wisely.
Exactly.
All right, honey, anything else that you wanna add about this part of the book?
Just in general, I mean, I definitely recommend it. It's a very, very popular book. It's been popped up for several years. He's written others as well. I have not read them yet. I'm tempted to buy
Oh, more books.
some more. He does have a podcast. I think I just recently saw that. Like
We can put it in the show notes if you don't know it off the top of your head.
yeah, it has. I mean, it's got the title of the book in it. Um,
The Subtle Art of Not Giving.
yeah, it's not the subtle art of not giving a fuck podcast, but it's something with some of those words in it. But no, I definitely recommend it because it's a pretty easy read, and I guarantee you'll have aha moments throughout the entire book,
Mm-hmm.
and you will learn something, that you didn't know before, and you'll change the way you think. And I think you'll start, questioning yourself. And I think everybody will take something away from this book.
Yeah. It's been on my list, but obviously I have numerous books and I have a book buying problem, so we'll see when I can get around to reading it myself. But that's another good thing to point out is that other than the podcast that's going to be coming up in April, we're going to talk about our home rental experience. It's been super fun and exciting. We got to first move into the home and then sit in it for a little bit and see how we want to discuss it on the podcast next month. But I'm also rereading one of my books, and it is taking me a while because there is so much to this book that it might be another part, like 2-part series book that I read after my divorce that I feel like most women, especially if you've gone through a really bad breakup, if you've gone through divorce, or if you've been single for a really long time, this book will be very, very helpful for you. And I will be pulling out all the insights that drastically changed my life and my perspective. So stay tuned for that. And Brad, did you end up finding it?
Well, I guess it is called the Solar and Podcast.
Yes,
Just-
my intuition was right.
And just name it that.
That's fantastic. All right. Okay, ladies, have a good rest of your day, and we will be back to chat with you again soon.
Thank you for joining me on the Reinventing the Arena podcast. I'm your host, Molly Conley, a dating and relationship coach devoted to helping women reinvent their love lives. Tap the subscribe button so you never miss out on an episode. You can always find me on Instagram at Reinventing the Arena, or you can learn more by visiting my website, reinventingthearena.com. And know this, I 100% believe there is a man out there for you. There's no better time than now to believe it too. You can always reinvent your love life, lady, filled with clarity, connection, and confidence. Just take it one choice at a time. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will chat with you again soon.